Ein Hod is a village in Haifa District in northern Israel, located at the foot of Mount Carmel and southeast of Haifa. It falls under the jurisdiction of Hof HaCarmel Regional Council and has the status of communal settlement. In 2014 it had a population of 265. The village is situated on a hillside amidst olive groves, with a view of the Mediterranean Sea in a 12th-century Crusader fortress. Prior to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, Ein Hod was the site of the Arab village of Ein Hod. Most of the Arab inhabitants were expelled during the war, however some remained in the area and settled nearby, forming a new village, also by the name of Ein Hod. After a failed attempt to create a moshav on the site, Ein Hod became an artists' colony in 1953. History. Prehistoric settlement excavations in the Carmel region indicate that human settlement in the area dates back over 150,000 years. Ayyubid period. The village was one of the al-Hijra villages founded by relatives of Emir Hussam al-Din Abu al-Hijra. Abu al-Hijra was an Iraqi Kurd and commander of the Kurdish forces that took part in Sultan Saladin's conquest of the Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem. In the 1180s, he was renowned for his bravery, and commanded the garrison of Acre at the time of the siege of Acre. Abu al-Hijra apparently returned to Iraq, but several members of his family remained in the country under orders from Saladin, and these family members settled on spacious tracts of land that they were granted in the Carmel region, in the lower eastern and western Galilee, and in the Hebron highlands. One of these land grants became the village of Ein Hod. Other al-Hijra villages were Haditha and Siron in the lower Galilee, Ruvis and Korkab in the western Galilee. By tradition, the remaining residents today still claim to be blood relations of al-Hijra. Ottoman period. In 1596, the village of Ein Hod was part of the Ottoman Nafia of Shafa under the Liwa of Lajan with a population of 44. The villagers paid taxes on crops such as wheat and barley, as well as on goats and beehives. In 1851 the Dutch traveller Van der Velde visited Haino, and spent a pleasant evening in Sheikh Suleiman's house. The Van der Velde describes how the villagers, all Muslim, were in great alarm over conscription to the Ottoman army. According to Sheikh Suleiman, a former sultan had given them a firman exempting the villagers from conscription. In 1870, the French explorer Victor Guérin visited the village. He found it had 120 inhabitants, with houses built of rammed earth or different construction aggregates. The village was surrounded by a small wall. In 1881, Haino was described as a small village situated on the end of a spur inhabited by 50 people who cultivated 3 fadans of land. The village elementary school for boys was founded in 1888, and in the early 20th century the number of inhabitants was given as 283. British mandate. In the 1922 census of Palestine, conducted by the British Mandate authorities, Ein Hod had a population of 347 Muslims and 3 Christians, where the Christians were all Maronites. At the time of the 1931 census, the population of Ein Hod had increased to 459, all Muslims, in a total of 81 occupied houses. In 1945 the population was 650, all Arabs, and it had a total of 12,605 dunams of land according to an official land and population survey. 1,503 dunams were for plantations and irrigable land, 4,422 for cereals, while 50 dunams were built-up land. Ein Hod. Most of the 700 to 900 Arab villages of Ein Hod from before the 1948 Arab-Israeli War resettled in the West Bank, many in the refugee camp in Jenin. A group of 35 original inhabitants, many of them members of the Abu al-Hija family, took shelter in a nearby wadi. Attempts to dispossess them by legal means did not succeed. This new village was named Ein Hod. Initially, the Israeli authorities did not recognize the village. In 1988, residents helped to form the Association of the Arab Unrecognized Villages in Israel. In 1992, the state finally officially recognized the village, but it was only granted full recognition in 2005, when it was connected to Israel's electric grid. Moshav Ein Hod. In July 1949, the Moshavim movement settled immigrants from Tunisia and Algeria in the depopulated village, renaming the village Ein Hod. The movement allocated instructors to the new settlers as the agricultural endeavor. The short-lived reuse of the village as an agricultural concern was abandoned, and the village remained deserted for a further year and a half. Artists' colony Ein Hod became an artists' colony in 1953. The driving spirit behind the project was Marcel Yanko, an acclaimed Dada artist, who kept the village from being demolished by the security forces and convinced the government to let him build an artists' colony there. Today Ein Hod is now a communal settlement run by an elected administrative committee. Many Israeli painters, sculptors and musicians live there and maintain studios and galleries that are open to the public. Efforts have been made to preserve some of the old houses. The village mosque was converted into a restaurant bar modeled after Café Voltaire in Zurich. During the Carmel forest fire in 2010, Ein Hod was evacuated and the village suffered considerable property damage. Culture. Ein Hod has 22 galleries, 14 art workshops, 2 museums and 14 rooms for rent to tourists. Workshops include printing, sculpture, photography, silk screening, music, ceramics, mosaics, design, stained glass, lithography and blacksmithing. The Gertrude Kraus House sponsors bi-weekly chamber music concerts and guest lectures. During the summer months, performances of popular music and light entertainment take place in an outdoor amphitheater. Throughout the year, free outdoor jazz concerts are held on Saturdays near the village's central square. Ein Hod's main gallery has 5 exhibition halls, each devoted to a different artistic sector. Hall 1 exhibits art by immigrants from the former Soviet Union and Ethiopia. Hall 2 is exclusively for Ein Hod artists. Past and present. Halls 3 and 4 are for changing exhibitions, solo and group shows of residents and outsiders, and Hall 5 is for theme shows. The Nisco Museum of Mechanical Music in Ein Hod is the first museum in Israel dedicated to antique musical instruments. The collection, accumulated over 40 years by Nissan Cohen, contains music boxes, hurdy-gurdies, an automatic organ, a reproducing player piano, a collection of 100-year-old manivels, gramophones, hand-operated automatic pianos and other instruments. In 1992, an original part from the Berlin Wall was placed in the village, and it has since been welcoming the visitors to the main museum. The Düsseldorf Ein Hod exchange program has brought Düsseldorf artists to Ein Hod and vice versa over the past 2 decades. A similar program has been inaugurated for artists from New Hampshire. Notable residents. An early resident was the American children's writer and amateur archaeologist Nora Benjamin Kuby. One of Ein Hod's veteran artists is Ursula Malbon, whose bronze sculptures have been on display since 1978 in Haifa's Vista of Peace Garden, the first public sculpture garden in Israel dedicated solely to the works of a woman sculptor. Others include Avraham Eilat, a multimedia artist whose latest video art installed in psychophysical time is shown in several leading art events in Europe. And Dina Merhav creates sculptures from old metal utensils and industrial machine parts. One of her works, Totem, was exhibited at the Olympic Sculpture Garden in Beijing, China, when the Olympic Games were held there. Yigal Tumark, an Israeli painter and sculptor, also studied at Ein Hod. Dan Kamiser, creator of the Kamiser riddle, is a resident of Ein Hod. Based on an original coding system, the Kamiser riddle is widely used to teach problem solving in schools, government agencies and high-tech companies. 10 Ein Hod residents have won the Israel Prize, awarded annually on Israel Independence Day. According to Robert Nietzsche, who lives in the village, the artists working there today are fully aware of the illustrious example of these great artists and scholars, who lived and are still living among them. Ein Hod residents who have won the prize are Zahara Schatz, for painting and sculpture, Marcel Yanko, for painting, Gertrude Kraus, for dance, Simon Halkan, for literature, Chaim Heffer, for Hebrew songwriting, Nathan Zak, for poetry, Michael Gross, for painting and sculpture, Hila Almagor, for acting, gallery, Bibliography.